Training camp doesn't really start until the pads come on. Well, the pads came on today. The first padded practice of 2025 Titans training camp is in the books. Cam Ward struggled a little bit through 3 interceptions. We're going to talk about why some of those were not his fault. Some defensive players who stood out. Overall, the defense won the day. Let's recap the first padded practice now. This is the Music City Audible. Let's get to it. Welcome everyone to another episode of the Music City Audible podcast presented by Sinkers Beverages, the premier wine, spirits, and beer store in East Nashville. In partnership with 440 Sports, I'm Justin Graver. With me, as always, Justin Melo, here to recap the first day in pads for the Titans of this year's training camp. And Justin, as I said at the top, people say, doesn't really start until the pads come on. Well, the pads are on now. How's it going?
Doing well. Yeah, I was excited for this one because I had mentioned on the last recap that the pads would be coming on for the next practice, the show that we did with Zach Lyons. And to me, that's when it feels like training camp really starts. It feels like legitimate football practice when the pads are on. And there were a lot of takeaways from today, not just Cam Ward, but a couple of guys, one in particular, both from the rookie class, one who I think stood out when the pads came on after he was quiet in the first couple practices. And another guy who was quieter when the pads came on after he stood out in the first couple. So 2 rookies maybe going in opposite directions on Tuesday. A lot of takeaways from what was looks like an intense physical practice.
Yeah, and my favorite part about this is there's no more excuses. We've been saying well, the offensive line, but we don't really know because the pads aren't on. Or the linebacker competition, we're not going to learn anything until the pads come on. Well, we can stop all that. The pads are on. So let's talk about what we learned. And as always, on the unofficial Cam Ward channel here, we're going to start with Cam Ward's day. Before we get too deep, a reminder to please subscribe to this channel, like the video, drop a comment below, help us grow so we can continue to bring you the content that we love to make. The best way to help us grow is to watch every video, watch it all the way through. If you get bored halfway through, just turn the sound off, let it play all the way through. Just help us out a little in the background, Watch all the videos all the way through, drop a comment below, like everything, and make sure you're subscribed to the channel. We appreciate you guys. Tell your friends to tune in to the Music City Audible channel. Post links to our podcast on Reddit and other places. Help us spread the word.
Grandparents. What the hell's grandma doing on Tuesday afternoon? Baking a pie? She could throw on the Music City Audible in the background. She's retired.
That's what I'm saying. We don't actually care if you watch the show. We just want the play count. We just want the watch hours. So turn the show on. I care
if you watch the show. Please watch the show and don't listen to Graver.
All jokes aside, we appreciate all of you for tuning in. So let's get into this. Cam Ward, 3 interceptions, Justin. Before we do anything else, let's just break down these 3 plays based on the reporting we received from the fine folks out at training camp. Guys like Treylon Davenport, Easton Freeze, Zach Lyons, and many others. Sorry if I didn't shout you out. We appreciate you as well. Breaking down what happened at camp, these 3 interceptions. The first one was an RPO play that was tipped at the line of scrimmage and picked off by Gabe Judy Lawley. The second one was against a blitz package with Cam Ward targeting Chig Okonkwo, I think over the middle of the field, and there was a miscommunication. Chig sort of stopped running his route or didn't sit down, I think is the report I saw, when he should have sat down, and Cam Ward tried to throw it in the hole of the zone. Chig kept running. Ball just goes to nobody, essentially, and right into the belly of Xavier Woods. And then the final play sounded like Cam Ward was under a bit of pressure, chucked up a ball deep for Josh Wiley on a corner route. The ball was picked off, but Treylon Davenport did say Wiley probably could have made a better effort to catch up. So in some small way, Justin, you could almost write off all 3 interceptions as not entirely Cam Ward's fault. And obviously, if he throws a pass that gets tipped at the line of scrimmage, bad things happen when balls get tipped up into the air. It's his fault. He threw a ball that was tippable, so that's not his fault. Chig Okonkwo doesn't sit down in the zone. Cam Ward maybe should see that his guy is going to continue to run, but when you throw with anticipation, you can't always see that your guy is going to continue to run. You could maybe argue that it's on Cam Ward, but it depends on who misread the coverage there and who was right in between him and Chig. And those are the kind of kinks you hope get worked out this time of year. And then the last one, Josh Wiley could have made a better effort to at least turn what was probably a bad decision and not a good throw, maybe turn that into an incomplete pass instead of an interception. They're all still, in some ways, on Cam Ward, of course. He threw the ball. But I would argue, and this is what we were talking about before the show, I would argue that these were all better, in quotes, better interceptions, better process, just a bad result than the interceptions we saw earlier in camp with with Cody Barton just jumping a route over the middle on a throw that was very late, or James Williams doing essentially the same thing in Saturday's practice. Like, the interceptions today don't necessarily concern me about Cam Ward because I think you can sort of explain them, but you still don't want to see your quarterback throw 3 interceptions in one practice, no matter whose fault it is.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from. You can explain them. I'm not going to, never overreact to too much that's going on at training camp, especially when your quarterback's throwing interceptions in a live practice setting. I'll say if I'm going to excuse one of them, I think the one I'm most comfortable excusing based on all the descriptions and people we've spoken to, probably the Chig one. It sounds like he's supposed to sit down. And we praise Cam Ward when he throws the ball with anticipation, right? Like he was doing that at Saturday's practice. We gushed over it. He throws this one with anticipation. Tight end runs the wrong route, ends up in the belly of Xavier Woods, as you said. I think that's the one that I'm most comfortable excusing. Maybe Chig will show up on time next time there's a Cam Ward video vlog, and he's getting them together to work out, and he's stuck in traffic. All kidding aside. The first one, the tip ball, like I'm 50-50. Like I look, sometimes defenders make great plays, right? But to some degree, yeah, when you throw a tipped ball, some of that responsibility is going to fall at your feet, right? Like it was tippable, as you said. So I'm with you on that one. By the way, a good break for Gabe Judy Lally on that one, who's working hard to try to probably claim that final roster spot at cornerback. Plays like this, when he's opportunistic, that's going to help him in his bid. The third one, I know, like Tehran said, Josh Wiley maybe could have made a better effort. I mean, you always want to see guys make an effort, especially when you're on the roster bubble, like Josh Wiley, allegedly is. But some of the other descriptions I read, it really sounded like this was a prayer, right? Like he kind of threw it up under pressure, like, I'm going to get sacked, let me get rid of this ball. I think instinct could kick in for a guy like Wiley who sees it and is like, oh, like you just give up on it immediately. Like that's a bad decision. And yeah, you'd like, again, to kind of fight through that. But it really sounds like it was just a bad decision made under pressure, and he's trying to avoid the sack. So I'm going to put that one, probably more on Cam Ward than I am on Josh Wiley. But there were some good throws as well. I'll get it. Yeah.
Well, I don't want to get to the good throws yet. I do want to get to them. Sorry, audience. We will definitely get to the good throws. I just want to talk really quickly about this time of year and throwing these interceptions and why it's almost a good thing. Like, not that it's ever that good. Number one, though, you do love to see that your defense is forcing a bunch of turnovers on the day, because a team that needed to force more turnovers last year with a defensive coordinator in Denard Wilson, who all we heard when he was hired was that his mindset is take the ball away, be aggressive, force turnovers however you can. So that's good from that standpoint. Obviously, you don't want to see your own offense go commit 3 turnovers, but they're all teaching points. And I bring this up because Brian Callahan spoke about it before practice in his press conference, actually talking about the other interceptions, the ones to Cody Barton and James Williams, where Cam is a little late over the middle of the field throwing into a crowd. And Brian Callahan talking about how they dissect those plays together, how they show Cam where he could have gone with the ball, where he should have gone with the ball. And Brian Callahan said he always gets it. Like, he understands after seeing it one time, okay, I shouldn't have made that decision, and understands the why behind why he shouldn't have done it and where he should have gone with the ball. So every single one of these moments is a teaching moment. The one to Chig is the biggest teaching moment to me, because that's one where he and Chig Okonkwo need to be on the same page. And if you don't ever have this happen in a practice setting, then you might not. It might take a turnover in a live game in week 1 or week 2 before you can really have that conversation and get on the same page. So this is a valuable time to make mistakes. The one that's tipped at the line, like that's not really going to teach him much. He's played football for long enough. He knows he needs to throw balls that aren't tippable at the line. The deep one that gets picked off by Darrell Baker Jr., like, of course, that's a teaching moment where it's like, you're under pressure like this, just throw the ball away. If you're trying to get rid of it to avoid the sack, no need to chuck it up in harm's way. And I think those teaching moments happening right now are extremely valuable for a rookie quarterback.
Yeah, I guarantee you, like, all I'll add is when they put the tape on of the Wiley one, I'd be shocked if the staff wasn't like, in a game, you eat this ball, like you just take the sack and we punt, like it is what it is. Or you chuck it out of bounds if you can. You never just kind of throw it up there and ask your tight end to make a play in that jump ball one-on-one type of situation. Not a guy like Josh Wiley, at least.
Yeah, so you wanted to get to some of the good plays. I'll transition us into that by saying that Easton Freeze had an interesting tweet. And again, not Cam Ward's best day. That's how Easton started the tweet. Not Cam Ward's best day. The miscommunications, a couple interceptions, not throwing the best deep balls. But this is the interesting part. Easton said, I can tell he's playing around with some things on the boundary, a shift from how much he's operated in the middle of the field. Would be interested to know the stated focus for him today. I would be too, Easton. So if we get that information out there, maybe drop it in the comments if it comes out after we finish recording, or I'm going to keep my eye out for it, hopefully to pop up before then. But it would be interesting to know the stated focus, because obviously we never know what, they're trying to accomplish with any given practice and what Cam Ward's mindset was. But it's nice to hear that trying more things on the boundary and having some success with it, even if it did lead to some more turnovers in other aspects of the day.
Yeah, I mean, it would be good to know sort of the stated focus, but it does sound like, I think it's fair to say this was an uneven day for Cam. Well, uneven isn't the worst thing. It could get worse, right? It wasn't a disastrous day. Well, why was it uneven? There were a couple decent throws in there as well, right? Like Parker Kelly on Twitter, who's an underrated follow if you're a Titans guy, said the throw of the day occurred to Bryce Oliver up the left sideline. Second time Bryce Oliver's made a big play in as many practices, right? You'll remember at Saturday's session at the Back Together weekend at Nissan Stadium, he made a big grab up the left sideline where he went up and came down with a ball, which Treylon Burks couldn't do. Yeah, over Daryl Baker Jr., I think it was.
Yes.
Right, yeah.
So he's schooling Daryl Baker Jr. on a regular basis at training camp, it feels like.
So nice to see Bryce Oliver make another play here at Tuesday's session in pads. And then there was one to Calvin Ridley that Easton Freeze described as, a little behind them, but it was an explosive play also up the left sideline, funny enough. Said it was a little behind, but Ridley did a great job adjusting and coming down with the ball. Jarvis Brownlee Jr. had tight coverage on the play. That's good on good, right? Good receiver, good corner. Love to see him help out his quarterback, who, again, was a little off on that throw. We had some inconsistent reports, but Easton did mention that he was a little off, as you said, right? A little short on the deep stuff, not great on the deep stuff. So there was a nice one to Gunnar Helm where the rookie tight end made a diving catch. And it wasn't his only grab of the day. Gunnar Helm, who I do want to talk about in a second, thanks to our pal Zach Lyons. I'm just going to do it then. Thanks to our pal Zach Lyons, who said Gunnar Helm had a terrific all-around day, catching the ball, blocking, route running. I teased it earlier. You probably knew who I was talking about if you're a smart Titans fan, that one of these Titans rookies had a good day. When I look at a guy like Gunnar Helm, who's 6'5", 241 at the NFL Combine, that's a guy who's relishing the pads coming on, right? He's excited for it to get real, for football to feel real, and for it to get physical. We talked about it a couple episodes. I think we talked about it with Zach on the last one. Haven't heard Gunnar Helm's name a lot throughout the first couple practices. What's going on with Gunnar Helm? Well, the pads come on. He's a physical specimen, and that stature, to no surprise, looked good out there. Again, both as a blocker and as a pass catcher, had a great diving catch, as I just mentioned. But it's also encouraging that he looks good blocking in line, right? That role's sort of up for grabs in that tight end room. So that's going to help him get on the field early if he can do that with consistency. I guarantee you a tight end coach like Luke Stalker, who is such a good blocker, was probably very impressed with Gunnar Helm today once those pads came on. So shout out to Gunnar Helm. Sounds like he was one of the major standouts on Tuesday.
Yeah, and you mentioned he's had a quiet-ish training camp so far. We've done these recaps plenty, and we haven't really had anything Gunnar Helm related to talk about. We did ask Zach Lyons about him on the last show because it was like, what's going on with this guy? So yeah, really nice to see him popping today when the pads come on. And I've been resistant to the idea that Gunnar Helm is just going to come take Chigakonko's tight end one mantle this season. Same. I think that's a season 2 and beyond kind of outlook for Gunnar Helm, but he can still be a contributor without taking Chigakonko's role outright. So I think that's potentially where this is headed, and he had a good day, so that's good to note. We should talk about Xavier Restrepo because, speaking of guys that haven't really been mentioned much since camp started, Xavier Restrepo has been running with the threes, and that's why we haven't made a lot of mention of him, and we did talk about that on a recent pod at some point, but this is just, expectation check. Xavier Restrepo is not getting a lot of run with the upper, with the first and second team offense, but that's not stopping him from making plays, Justin.
Yeah, it sounds like he made one of the most explosive plays of the day, which is, to me, is even more impressive when your quarterback is Tim Boyle and you can make any explosive play on the ball. That's apparently what happened. He had a big time grab, deep down the field. So, and look, as a guy who's got a reputation for being a slot only and underneath the coverage, short to intermediate, nice to see him make an explosive play deep down the field. But as you said, expectation check. He's running like, who are some of the other receivers when I almost said Restrepos? Who are some of the other receivers when Restrepo is on the field? It's James Prochet, it's Jaquan Jackson. Like, this is not the ideal group for him to be running with. So, starting to pump the brakes a little bit on Xavier Restrepo being a roster lock. I'm not comfortable saying that right now, but nice to see him taking advantage of that opportunity and making a big play at camp on Tuesday.
To be clear, this particular show has never called him a roster lock.
No. We had him on our 53, but we've never called him a lock.
We projected him onto our roster, and I think at this point, I do kind of want to touch on this updated battle for that last wide receiver spot. Now, there are a few things in play. How many receivers do they keep? If they only keep 6, which is certainly on the table, I feel like Titans fans everywhere have
absolutely. 7's a lot. I feel like 7's not the norm.
But I think maybe we're in an echo chamber, with the media in this market.
Yeah.
And the fan base, everybody's just assumed that, it's going to be 7 this year because they have more bodies that are capable of being on an NFL roster. So they should keep all of them because the Titans have been lacking for that kind of talent in the room for a long time. But if they only keep 6, the 6 they keep are, I think it's set in stone.
Agreed.
The top 6 receivers on this roster. It's the 3 veterans, Calvin Ridley, Tyler Lockett, Van Jefferson, and then 2 rookies in Chimere Dike and Alec Iamaner and Bryce Oliver. And if you don't think Bryce Oliver is a roster lock, you're wrong. Bryce Oliver is a core special teamer, and he can make plays on the field. He is a lock to make this roster. And if you disagree,
their best special teamer might be their best. He might be the best.
So if you don't think Bryce Oliver is a lock, reevaluate. You are wrong. So those 6 guys are definitely making the roster 100% unless somebody gets injured, 100% making the roster. So Xavier Restrepo is battling to convince the coaching staff, first of all, to keep 7 receivers. And then secondly, he's battling against a James Prochet, who's going to give you some value on special teams, which Xavier Restrepo, TBD if he can. I've said that I think he can, but I don't know that he actually can. And if he can't, there's not really a spot for him on this roster. And then there's other guys in the room as well who I don't think have a realistic shot to make the team, but it's between Restrepo and Prochet, in my opinion, for the 7th spot, if they even keep 7. So a little bit longer Restrepo talk today since we haven't mentioned him much since camp started, but honestly, it's nice to see him making plays, and he still has time to cement himself and earn his way onto this team.
Preseason will be so big for him. He's probably going to get a lot of run out there, right? And his type of style of receiver tends to do well in the preseason, right? He's going to run a lot of slants underneath against reserve corners. He has a chance to have a real productive preseason.
But he also needs to, in preseason, show that he can contribute as a special teamer if he wants to make the team, and that he'll have a chance to do it. So we'll see. But I think if they had to cut it today, which they don't, so it doesn't really matter. But if they did, I think they probably only keep 6 today and try to get Restrepo on the practice squad. And keep in mind, if your first reaction to that may be, well, they're not going to get him on the practice squad. He's going to get claimed by somebody.
I didn't even know you were going to go there. I was going to go there when you were done with this talking point. How many guys get cut every year? Just do the math. 40 times 32, right? Rough math. That's a lot. How many get claimed? 10? Less? Xavier Restrepo's probably not getting claimed if I would say it's he's got a 5 to 10% chance of getting claimed.
I think it's even lower than that because the team that drafted Cam Ward, who was Restrepo's college teammate, the other 31 teams are going to look at it and be like, wow, even they didn't want to keep him on their active roster. Do we really want to cut someone who's been in camp with us the entire offseason just to add a guy that the Titans didn't even think was good enough to put on their active roster? Remember, another team can't claim him for their practice squad. They'd have to cut somebody to claim him. So that's why I think he would be safe if they did try to just get him on the practice squad. All right, we have offensive line and defensive line to talk about. Pads came on, Justin. We haven't even gotten to the trenches yet, which is what it's all about when the pads come on. And so let's talk about that. But first, a quick reminder about the Sinkers 40th birthday Jamboree coming up Saturday, August 9th at 5:30 p.m. at the Basement East. Live music, free giveaways. You can get your tickets, which are only $10 and come with 2 free drinks at the link in this description. So we'll see you guys there. Well, not us literally because I'm in Texas and you're in Canada, but we would like to see you guys there if we could make it. But hopefully you'll go experience it for us so we can live vicariously through you. Sinkers Beverages, thanks for sponsoring the channel. All right, Justin, trench talk. we had a couple offensive linemen really dominate, and you wanted to get into a rookie who maybe struggled a bit today.
Yeah, so Nick Suss, again, one of the best Twitter followers out there if you're a Titans fan, probably the most underrated member of Titans Twitter, tallied up that it was like 45, 46 reps one-on-ones, O-line, D-line. He tallied up 29-14 in favor of the O-line. I mean, that is a pretty dominant showing, according to most in attendance. And that was pretty consistent. Like, I think Easton echoed what Nick Suss said. Zach Lyons said the O-line is paying the D-line back now that the pads are on. Couple of guys stood out. It sounds like Peter Skoronski was the most dominant player up front. No surprise, I don't think, right? Like, Peter Skoronski's their best lineman. I feel pretty comfortable saying that. He's going to be their best one this year, and I think he's a potential Pro Bowler if the Titans are half decent. That's sort of where my expectations are for Peter Skoronski. Sounds like he didn't really put a foot wrong at Tuesday's practice. JC Latham was really good. I'm going to hit two birds with one stone on this one. As good as he was, there was one report that he did get beat for a sack by Arden Key, who kind of caught him off guard with the speed and explosiveness. A great get-off. I talked about Arden Key being the best sack artist in the edge room. He's the one we're talking about the least because we know the most about him, and it's boring. Well, no surprise the pads come on. Sounds like Arden Key made the best play out of any edge on the team on Tuesday, beating the sophomore right tackle for a sack. There was an O-lineman apparently who didn't play that well, according to sources in attendance. I'm not going to out him because I don't think this one made it to the timeline, but sounds like Kevin Zeitler had a bit of a rough day out there. Again, the O-line had a dominant showing in one-on-ones. That apparently wasn't the case for Kevin Zeitler. Now, it's early, no cause for concern, obviously. I'll say he had a lot of rest days at mandatory minicamp, OTAs, didn't do a whole lot there. Maybe when the pads came on today for the first time, it kind of caught up to him. Like, oh, wow, I got some catching up to do. Something to monitor moving forward. You don't want this to snowball. And because, I'm excited about Kevin Zeitler, but he wouldn't be the first, 35-year-old lineman to kind of fall off a cliff, right? So it's something to monitor moving forward. Don't hit the panic button yet, but you'd like to see him bounce back over these next couple of practices and have a better day.
Yeah, I think, I was going to say something about that too. Kevin Zeitler probably just knocking the rust off because, like you said, he's missed a lot of practices. So that's also something I'm not going to be overly concerned about. But I think the overall theme that you sort of are touching on here is that in the one-on-one drills, which are usually slanted towards the defense, like usually the defense has an advantage in a one-on-one pass blocking. No one likes pass pro, But apparently the offensive line, again, as you said, dominated the one-on-ones. However, once the team period began, once they were done with 7-on-7, because during 7-on-7, the trenches are doing their one-on-ones while the quarterbacks, receivers, and defensive backs are practicing on the other field.
Right.
Once they came together for the full team, it sounded like the defense started to absolutely dominate, and part of that was Jeffrey Simmons and Tavondre Sweat being a force on the interior, which is what we heard coming out of camp. And Taylor Zarzar did a Twitter video and Instagram video talking about his observations at camp. And one of the things he said was that the Jeffrey Simmons, Tavondre Sweat interior combo was extremely stout against the Titans' attempts to run the ball today. And I wonder if our sources that said Kevin Zeitler struggled, I wonder if that was part of it too, was inability to really get a lot going in the run game against that duo, which would be huge for the Titans defense because they were both out there last year and the Titans defense was not good at stopping the run last year. But if, those two guys can eat up blocks and the linebackers can read their keys right, we might see something different this season.
I'll also give a shout out to another interior D lineman because you're talking about the team period. Apparently, the very first play of the team period was a run to Tajay Spears that got absolutely blown up by Sebastian Joseph Day. And then he blew up another run play just a handful of reps later. So it does sound like once that team period started, those interior D linemen were pretty good. It just doesn't sound like they won a lot of one-on-ones. And maybe that was, specifically slanted towards the edges because the rookie that I teased earlier who did not have a very good day apparently was Femi Oladejo. Now, this initially came to us by one of our sources at practice, but Paul Kuharski did tweet it later saying JC Latham and Peter Skoronski really good in one-on-ones. Femi Oladejo wasn't. I talked about rookies going in opposite directions today. Femi Oladejo was one of those guys that we all considered a standout at the first couple of training camp practices. Brian Callahan said he's ahead of the curve the other day. We talked about the energy that he brings to practice. Well, apparently today the pads came on as he was conducting his one-on-ones in pass rushing drills. One of our sources said it looked rough, quote unquote. Maybe just a bit of a reminder that this is a guy, again, that played off-ball linebacker majority of his career. We've beat this like a dead horse. Moved to edge middle of the season. Still has some acclimating to do. I think what I'll end with, the rawness in Femi Oladejo's game sounded pretty evident at Tuesday's practice. Again, not time to wave the red flag, not time to hit the panic button. Maybe stick a pin in it and revisit it the next practice. You want to see if there's some growth, if he starts winning some reps as these progress forward. But didn't sound like he had a very good day on Tuesday.
And it makes sense. This is the first practice in pads, and he'd been doing okay and maybe even doing great in the non-padded practices up to this point. But what did we say after every one of those practices we were recapping where the offensive line is struggling to protect? It's like, well, the pads haven't come on yet. The offensive line doesn't have any real way to win a rep when they can't grab you, not illegally, but grab that plate, that chest plate, and control you and block you and knock your arms down and play. Like it's just different when you have your pads on. Your mental, the approach you take mentally is way more physical and different. And Femi Oladejo probably wasn't ready for the level of physicality, the increase there that he saw in this practice. And I saw a report that there were Titans players coaching him up on there was a rep where apparently he got buried by Jalen Duncan, which, yeesh, if you're getting buried by Jalen Duncan,
I think boy. It was Arden Key. So it was Arden Key pulled Femi aside after that rep and apparently coached him up on striking first. It sounds like he went into that rep a little bit hesitant. Say what you will about Jalen Duncan, third-year pro, played at Maryland. Sounds like he knew to get his hands on him first, if you will, and took control of the rep immediately. And it was an L for Femi Oladejo on that one. So, but you love to see Arden Key, most experienced edge rusher in the room, the most tenured edge rusher in the room, immediately pull him to the side and say, hey, here's what you did wrong on that rep, and this is what you got to do better. I'll end this portion of the conversation, if you don't mind, by saying, as much as we shout out the D-line for the team period, the general vibe I got was the O-line won this day overall, and that does sort of, a vibe with our expectations for this team, right? Like, we think this O-line is going to be pretty good, and we're fairly concerned about this D-line's ability to rush the quarterback, right? So I think in general, that sort of, went hand in hand with our expectation. I don't have a whole lot to add. I do want to quickly shout out. Real
quick, let me put it to you this way, and you answer this question, and this will be the button on that conversation, and you can get to your quick shout outs. What percentage of the offensive line success today do you think is offensive line is good, and what percentage is defensive line is bad? Like, was it the offensive line? It's like 50-50. They're good and they're bad. Or is it like, well, the defensive line being bad is more of a reason for the offensive line playing well today? Like, how would you weight that out?
I'll probably go 60-40 in favor of the O-line because I think I'm still, until we see them in the regular season, they got a great test in week 1 against a dominant Denver Broncos defensive line. Until we see all that come together, I believe in the O-line, but see it to believe it kind of thing, right? But I do think it's going to be good, and I am worried about the D-line. So I'll go 60-40. I'm not going to go 65+. I wasn't born yesterday. Don't want to skew it too much that way. But because it sort of, again, vibes with my general expectation, I'm comfortable going above 50-50.
All right. And your final shout outs to close out this episode, Justin.
I don't know if it's plural. I think we pretty much talked about everyone I wanted to talk about. You could think of someone we missed, but the one that I wanted to quickly note was Kevin Winston Jr., who has made plays at every single training camp practice, maybe not an eye-popping one today on Tuesday, but we did have a report that he would have absolutely leveled James Prochet across the middle of the field if that sort of contact was allowed. So, and you know what? I have full confidence in saying that if it was allowed, he would have absolutely leveled them because he's a big-bodied safety. He is physical. He's tough. He loves to tackle. He was a team leader in tackles for Penn State in 2023 when he was fully healthy. And to me, what this says is he was in the right position. I think that's my main takeaway here. If this was a real game, he's either getting a 15-yard penalty or he's creating an incompletion, right? Like, I just love the positions that he's continuously been in, and no doubt he would have made a big-time play on that one if he was allowed to level him.
And these are really encouraging reports for a guy who was billed as more of a box safety and less of a coverage guy. And every play that we've shouted out on this podcast that he's made in a practice has been a coverage play. Like, he already didn't miss a tackle the entire, I think, 2022, 2023. There was one of the recent seasons he didn't miss a tackle the whole freaking year. So we know he's good in run support and coming up into the box and making tackles. But if he can also excel in coverage, and granted, he's playing against Tim Boyle and Brandon Allen, he's not getting first-team reps. But I think it's only a matter of time before we start getting reports that Kevin Winston's getting some run, rotating in with the first team. And I'm really excited to see if he continues to make plays in that setting, because if he walks in and is, really good from day one for this Titans defense, not that they need like a really good safety on the back end because they're pretty good there, but it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt.
Players in general. That's where I'm at, right? Like, how many do they have? Like, I'm only confident in like 2. Jeffrey Simmons and Amani Hooker, like real impact game changers, right? To be honest with you, like, I'm not going above 2 right now. So if he can come in and be an impact guy right away and create turnovers, big hits, set the tone, right? Like, everyone starts, all of a sudden, Arden Key's feeding off that energy and he looks explosive, and James Williams is making plays in the middle of the field as well. Like, that could change the whole dynamic of this defense. I really believe that he could help change the whole dynamic of this unit if he kind of hits the ground running.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I think it could be, the Titans safety duo when they went to the playoffs and went to the AFC Championship was Kevin Byard and Kenny Vaccaro. And Kevin Byard was your do-it-all, rangy turnover forcer, and Kenny Vaccaro was your enforcer, tackler, big hitter, energy, always making plays around the ball. I think these two guys could emulate those kind of roles where Amani Hooker, he led the team in interceptions last year. He's your guy out there on the back end, do it all everywhere, forcing turnovers. And Kevin Winston Jr. is the the thunder to that lightning, just knocking through guys and making a statement and setting the tone and just always being around the ball, making plays. So I think that there's a lot of promise here in this rookie class. Obviously, Femi Oladejo will get better. And just like we said about Cam Ward, like, these are the teaching moments that you need in order to develop. You don't develop if everything you do is just really good all the time. Like, you got to face some adversity to go through some development. So that's where we're at. Real quick before we sign off, Justin, a little bit of news, housekeeping to attend to. I know we don't even want to say his name on this podcast anymore, but we can't just ignore it. The Titans have waived/injured Treylon Burks, and honestly, we're recording this. It's just after 12 Central. The waiver wire process will happen around 3 p.m. Central. TBD if I can finish editing the podcast by then. Maybe Treylon Burks gets claimed. Maybe he doesn't.
Not a chance in hell. Not
a chance in hell. Okay, well, if he doesn't get claimed, if he doesn't get claimed, he reverts back to the Titans roster on injured reserve, IR. So that's you think that's the most? I do think that's the most likely thing, but I wouldn't be like mind blown if he.
Someone has to inherit the contract, right? And there's a decent base salary attached to it in the 4th year of that. Not a huge one, but decent enough for a guy who has sucked and is about to be out for like 3 months, 2-3 months. He's got 1 year left on his deal. If I had a double egg on my face, please come call me out in the comments. I'll be freaking stunned if he gets claimed.
Well, we don't need to spend time on it.
He does. They're praying he does.
we don't need to spend time on it because by the time this pod is listened to most people, the result will be out there. But the fact is, Treylon Burks not going to be a factor on the 2025 Titans. And this, I think, just goes to reinforce what we already thought, which is that they had no plans.
How done they are with him. Totally given up, admitting defeat.
Exactly. All right, that'll do it for this episode. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. Look, I can't promise this, but my targeted goal is to have the Calvin Ridley, Cam Ward bromance video out to you all on Thursday. And by putting it down on video and posting it to you, I add that little extra pressure to myself. Keep me accountable here to actually get that video done in time. So that will probably be the next time you hear from us. If not, there'll be another pod first. And it means I'm working too hard on this dumb video. But thanks to everyone for tuning in. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel. Again, drop a comment below. We appreciate all of you. Thanks again to Sinkers Beverages. Check out the link to Sinkers 40th birthday jamboree. Until next time, y'all stay safe out there and tighten up.
a Broadway sports media production.